In this video, we'll talk about slow motion. Now, slow motion can make the mundane and the usual clips look rather dramatic and special, and it can actually draw you into that video. However, slow motion isn't just as simple as slowing down your video in a video editing software. There's more to that than just doing so. Now, if you are new to making videos, this video will probably help you if you want to make slow motion video. If you have some experience, then this video will be a little bit too basic and you can actually give it a skip. Now stay to the end. I'm going to show you how you can actually fake slow motion using software. Now there are three things that's very important when you want to shoot slow motion. Number one is of course to shoot at a higher frames per second or FPS. Now the reason for that is that when you shoot at the higher frames per second, you can slow down your video and there will be enough frames to show in that video so that your video won't be blocky. What do I mean by that? If your video is at 24 frames per second, like a lot of people who wants to do a cinematic video, your shutter speed should be double that or as close to that as possible. So meaning 1/48th of a second or 1/50th. Now if you are like me shooting at 30 frames per second, I should be shooting at 1/60th of a second. That will make that video look smooth. However, that means that you need more light if you want to shoot at higher and higher frames per second. You need to make sure that your lighting is sufficient for the conditions that you are shooting at. Point number two, slow motion looks best when there's things moving in the frame. Right? Our brains know that things move at a certain speed in nature, and when you slow it down, we tend to be attracted to videos like this because we want to see what we normally don't see with our normal naked eye. So when you slow it down, our brains go, this is slow motion, let me take a closer look, and people get drawn into that video. So if you are looking at me, a talking head, talking, and you're doing a slow motion, nobody is going to particularly pay much attention because nothing much is going to be interesting. However, even a simple, say, something dropping into water, and when you slow it down, people want to see perhaps the waves or things that they normally don't notice. Point number three, don't slow down your footage too much. This is related to point number one. When you slow down your footage too much, there isn't a frame to meet the empty frames and you kind of see blocky effects. And this actually leads me to the next point, which is to fake slow motion in software. Some software can create frames between the two frames. They sort of interpolate between two frames and create an additional frame so that when you play it back at normal speed, our eyes don't perceive that movement so much. There's not so much jerkiness or blockiness. So some software can do it, and so let me show you how it's done in Davinci Resolve. This is Davinci Resolve 17 and I have some clips on my timeline. This is just some 3 clips of me dropping some stuff. This is my mouse that I dropped, and this is the camera that I dropped, and this is another camera that I dropped. Right now I'm going to show you why I use this two camera. But anyway, this project setting at the moment, let's go to the file project settings. The project is 29.97 frames per second. Alright, so my clips are shot at 60. Alright, so this is just me dropping some items. Now to change the speed of an item in Davinci Resolve, all you need to do is go to your Inspector tab and go to Speed Change, and you can actually change the speed. So I'm going to change it to half, okay, 50%, and the clips lengthens. Now if you see this, now because there's a frame for each one, if I were to move it frame by frame, you notice that each frame, because the camera actually captured the frame, you can see this. Okay, same thing with this. Let's change the speed of this to 50%. Again, every frame you notice that the item moves and the lines are pretty clear and sharp. Okay, there's no artifacts over here. Alright, now if I were to change this a little bit slower some more, let's change this clip to 25. Now once I change this to 25%, this means that there is actually not enough frames. When I move frame by frame, you notice that the item doesn't move. Okay, you can see from the timeline that the frame is moving, but the item here doesn't move, the mouse doesn't drop. Alright, so let's move it. Okay, so this creates blockiness in the video. Okay, so let's do the same over here. Let's change the speed. Let me just move space for it. Change the speed to 25%. Certain frames is moved, one frame. So basically it is like stretching out and there's no data for the frames in between. Alright. Now, one thing with Davinci Resolve and in some other video editing software like Adobe Premiere, there is something called Optical Flow or real-time and scaling. Alright, so where you can actually, where the software actually would create those frames in between, and the process is called Optical Flow. So you straight away you can see this. Alright, so let me just play the video. Now, Optical Flow makes the video smoother, alright, as you watch it. However, it does create artifacts, right? Even on this, which is a clean background, it does create artifacts as well. Okay, let's change this to Optical Flow. Software doing the algorithm, trying to make sense of the frames in between. Alright, so it looks alright as it falls. Alright, but if you, so this is still alright. There's not too much artifact, but over here you can see the finger here. It's trying to figure out the frame, the next frame, and you have this artifact over here. Okay. Now if I turn off Optical Flow to project settings, this is the frame, this is the actual frame. Let's turn this on. So this is the interpolated frame. Alright, so I would say the correct word is to interpolate. What about this one here? Now this, the artifacts is worse because now now if you go for the nearest, or the, let's say the nearest, as you move, okay, you can see some artifacts over here. Because this is a busy background, the algorithm has a hard time trying to figure this out. Okay, and the shape as well. This is the ugly stuff. Alright, now if you go for Optical Flow, it will still be there. Okay, so you can actually see that where the software or the algorithm is trying to figure out and fill in the frames. Right? Now if you are shooting at a much higher frame rate, the real frame rate from your camera, say 120, you won't have something like this. Now even for this clip here, let's change it to 25%. There are still some artifacts. Alright, so this is because the camera is a complicated shape. You have things like this, whereas for the mouse over here, it's not too bad. Okay, so Optical Flow will actually depend on the shape, the object that you are trying to slow-mo. So this is a way that is where we are really sort of faking slow motion. I hope that you learned something from this video. Do give it a thumbs up if you like it. If you haven't subscribed, do consider subscribe. I really appreciate it. And do check out some of my other tutorials on the screen right now or in the description below. I also have video courses to teach you how to use video editing software. Do check it out in the description below as well.